Hey, welcome back to another lesson in computer science. I feel like today would be a good day to go back and practice our Java syntax. I've just been throwing so much at you. We need to just focus for a few minutes on just how to do all the fundamental things we have to do in Java. Now, everything in Java has to be inside a class. The only thing, I guess you could say, that's not is import statements. Within that, the only thing that doesn't have to be inside of a method is the declaration of variables. So I'm allowed to, outside of a method, say private int x and declare a variable x. But I can't do any code with that. I can't say private int x equals, I can even say private int x equals 9, but I can't say x plus equals 1. I'm not allowed to do that in Java. You'll notice uh, it's very confused, frankly. You cannot do anything but declare variables. You can actually give your variables a value. It is not recommended that you do this with instance variables, only with static constants. But okay, so that being said, everything else has to be inside a method. It has to be inside a class, and it has to be inside a method. So I've written a method called examples in a class called practice, and I want us to just code in this method. So we're not going to change anything but what goes right there. Okay? So let me just put up some instructions for you. And hope it's gray, but hope you can read it. Create a variable num that has the value 13. And again, we're just doing this inside a method, okay? So we don't have to worry about public or private or anything like that. Then increase num by 1 3 times on 3 separate lines. So maybe this is absolutely elementary to you, but maybe you're not sure how to do it. So pause the video and please do this assignment. Create a variable called num, give it the value 13. Then increase it by 1 3 times on 3 separate lines. So do not use a loop. Okay, let's see how you did it. You should have said int num equals 13. Notice that I cannot say num equals 13 because Java is strongly typed. And I'll get an error. Cannot find symbol num. You must declare it the first time you use it. Do not try and declare it again. So on the next line, I'm going to increase num. I can say num plus plus. I can say num gets num plus 1. Or I can say num plus equals 1. Num plus plus just increases by 1. If you have to increase by 4, there's no plus, 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 or something like that. You just have to say plus equals 4. Notice that if I try and declare it again, I will get an error because this is not allowed. It's saying, well, it's very confused actually. If I try and declare it again, it's going to tell me variable num is already defined in method examples. So you can't have two variables with the same name in the same example. So once you've declared that num is an int, leave it alone. You can declare a variable on one line all by itself, and then on the next line give it a value. That is allowed. Or you can do it all on one line, which is typically what we do when they are temporary variables. I call them temporary because they were created inside a method. Okay, let's increase 3 times. And there you have it. That's the solution to our first problem. Okay, next problem. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to use a viewer to show that. Okay, so I think if, instead of having to do it in comments, I think it'll show up better if I do it this way. Let's try that. There we go. All right, so right there in that same place, I want you to create a variable first that has your name as a value. Then your first name, that is, as a value. Then create a variable last that has the value of your last name. Finally, I want you to print to the console hello and then your name. So for example, mine would say hello, Jed Wilshire, with proper spacing. So would you please do that? Okay, let's see how you did it. String first equals Jed. String last equals Wilshire. So whenever you create a variable that will hold words, it's a string. Notice it's an object type. You can tell because of capital S. So there must be a class called string. Then to print, we say system.out.println first, or hello. Now I want to put a space so that my hello and J don't run together. Then I put plus first plus last. So you can see that the Jed will go there and last will go there, but unfortunately I'm still missing another space because this would have the D and W next to each other. So I'm going to do it like that. Okay? And you could run this and see if it works, and it should. It should have a space and then a space. But that's all very important. Make sure you didn't just say hello, whatever your name is, that you make sure you use the variables. I don't know if I made that clear, but that's the whole point of this, okay? All right, let's take a look at another one. All right, I would like for you, please, to use a for loop to print all the integers from 10 inclusive to 101 inclusive. Use a for loop. Pause the video if you have it. All right, let's see how we do this. We want to make sure we make a for loop that goes from 10 to 101, and I want to include both of them. So I'll say for, and there are three parts to a for loop. You create a variable, you check a variable, you change a variable. Int, whatever value I want. Maybe num, maybe x, maybe I. Int num gets 10. This means I'm creating a new variable here. Then I'll say, this is when I check it. Under what conditions do I want to run this? Well, I want 10 to start at 10 and increase to 101. But I want to include 101. So I'm going to do this while num is less than or equal to 101. Remember, this is read less than because the alligator is not eating it, while num is less than or equal to 101. And how do I want to change? Do I want num to go up by 1 or 2? Well, I said all of the integers, which are like whole numbers, so I'll say num plus plus. And then I will print out num. I can do a print line, then that would print them all on separate lines. Okay, and that's that one. All right. Let's try a while loop this time. This time I want you to use a while loop, and I want you to print all the even numbers from 20 to 0, including 20, including 0. And if you're using a while loop, you'll have to declare your variable first before you say while. So go ahead and give it a try. Okay, let's see how you did. I'm using a while loop. I'm going to count from 20 down to 0. So first, I'll make a variable. I'll call it x, and I'll set it at 20. Then I'll say while x is greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to print out the value. Then I'm going to decrease x by 2 so that I get to even numbers. So I say x minus equals 2. And that should print out all the numbers from 20 down to 0 and include it. All right, let's do another one. All right, this time I want you to use a for loop to print all the integers from 0 inclusive to 100 exclusive. Pause the video and write a for loop that goes from 0 inclusive to 100 exclusive. All right, let's see how we did. Okay, so I'm going to print all the integers from 0 to 100, but I'm not going to include 100. So I'll start with I equaling to 0, and I'll run while I is strictly less than 100, not less than or equal to it, I plus plus. And I'll say system.out.println I. And it's all the integers, that's why I'm using I plus plus. Remember that the I plus plus will occur after this code in the for loop is run. So it will print out while I is 0, then it will become a 1, but from the I plus plus. Okay. For this next series of exercises, we're going to be using Java util.list. So that it allows it to, even if we're not running it, I don't want to get a bunch of errors. So let's import it because it's in a different package than java.lang. Java.lang is auto imported right from the get-go. You don't have to import it. So for example, java.lang.string. But this is different. Java.util.list, and we'll import java.util.arraylist. List is the abstract interface. It is the rules that the array list follows. The AP Computer Science test allows you to just use array list only, but I would like to go ahead and practice how to use list with array list. So let's suppose we have a list of type string. So I'm going to say list string x. Let's call it words equals new array list, like that. So that makes a list. The way I'm allowed to do this. That would also work so that this matches this, but it's considered best programming habits to leave the abstract interface. If you try and instantiate list, you'll get an interesting error. It'll say Java util.list is abstract, cannot be instantiated. And so there's certain things that we call are abstract in Java, which means you can't actually use the new operator on them, but you can actually type your variables of them. And it increases flexibility. More on that later. But just be aware that we can do that. Let's add some words. We need to know how to, with list, you must know how to add, remove, set, get, and get the size. So I'm going to say words.add high, words.add by, words.add box, words.add yellow, words.add leaf, and these could be multiple words, leaves of grass, Walt Whitman, right? Words.add pillow. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's add a few more. Words. Dot add river. Words. Dot add forest. Words. Dot add trees. Okay. One more. Words.add, let's see, we got some colors. I don't know. Computer. All right. So, or computers, I say. So this is me adding all of my words to my list. What I would like for you to do, please, is to, if you don't need to type all that in right now. I am going to ask that you show me. You can do that. But for now, let's start with just how would you print the item in the 8th index of this list. Keep in mind, the first word I put in is at index 0. So this should be index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I expect to see the word trees if you were to actually run it. But I don't want you to print trees directly. I want you to print using the list. So pause it and give it a try. Okay, so the way that we get items from a list is like this. We say the name of the list dot get, and then we put the index 8. So that's the 8th item in the list. So it should print whatever that is. Okay, let's have you. I want you to practice. You can't put anything but objects inside a list. So we can't make a list of ints, but we can make a list of type integer. So I want you, please, at this time to practice make a list of integer types. So I want you to type it as list, but I want you to use array list. All right, let's see how we do that. We say list angle bracket integer, then we give it a variable name like mynums equals new array list. And I think I forgot to mention this, but you don't actually have to put the type anymore. You used to have to. You used to have to put it here and here, but now it actually infers it. So a lot of times we just leave it blank, and there you go. So list integer mynums equals new array list, and that's it. So that's how you make an array list. I'll tell you what, let's practice one more. There's another class called double. It's instead of lowercase double, we can't put primitives in a list. There's a capital double. Why don't you practice making a new list of type double? All right, how should that go? List angle bracket double. And it's just what we call a wrapper class. They behave almost exactly the same, but they allow you to put them in a list. And I'll call it nums equals new array list, and that'll put in the word double, and then call the constructor. All right, on the next one, I want you to do this. I want you to make a Java util.list of type string by instantiating Java util array list. I want you to add 5 different strings to this list, then print out the string in index 1 and the last index of the list. So pause it, give it a try. All right, well, if you were watching earlier, we basically did almost exactly the same thing. First, we make a list of type string. Java is strongly typed, so when we make lists, we have to say list so that Java knows it's a list, but then we have to tell Java what's it going to be a list of. And I'm just going to say names. I don't say names.add Leo, names.add Carl, names.add Jennifer, names.add Harry. And how many did I say? 5, right? Names.add Hank. Now, I want to print out the string in index 1. So system.out.println, the string in index 1, names.get 1. Next, I want to print names.get. I want the last index of the list. We know that there's 5 elements, so I can just say 4. All right. Let's suppose that let's just imagine that we had a class called Kitty. This is going to cause errors in our cats. Let's imagine we had a cat class, not cats, but cat class. So just cat. So see if you can write an array list of type cat. Now it's going to say it doesn't know what class cat is unless you go back and make a cat class right quick. And I just want you to print out the number of items in the list. Actually, you don't need to make the list. Let's just pretend we had it. Pretend we had a list called kitties. Do you know how you would print out the number of cats in that list? Yes, it's going to give you an error, but it's just for practice. So I want you to imagine that you already have a variable called kitties that's a list of type cat, and I want you to print out the number of items in that list. Pause it and do it. All right, this is how you should do it. If we have some list called kitties, then if I want to print out the number of cats in that list, I say kitties.size. The number of items in a list is found with .size. Okay, let's do another one. All right, this time I want you to create a list of type string. I want you to add 5 different strings to this list, print the size of the list. Then I want you to remove a string in index 2 and print the size again. It should go down from 5 to 4. Give it a try. All right, let's do it. So this is how we create a list. We say list, and I set of type string. And it's just going to be something like called words and new array list, like so. And I want you to add 5 words. So I'm going to say add A, words.add string B, words.add string C, words.add string D, words.add E. So there you go. 5 different, kind of boring words, not even words or letters, but there you go. Now, if I print this out right now, and I hope you do run it, you should see that words.size would print out 5. The indices go from 0 to 4, but that's 5 different words. Now, if I say words.remove 2, what gets removed? That's 0, 1, 2. So the word at index 2 would be C, and we have A, B, D, E. And if I print out the size, it should only be 4 now. Okay? All right. Let's do one more with lists. Let's do one more with lists. So suppose we have a java.util.list of type actor called characters. I want you to print out every actor in this list using a regular for loop and a for each loop. So again, it's going to give you errors if you want to change this to string, but then you have to add a bunch of strings to it. So you can try it, that's fine. But just pretend, because we use a lot of lists of actors in Greenfoot. So again, just imagine we have a list called characters, and I want you to practice printing out every character. So if I have a list called characters, okay? And that can get returned to me by calling Greenfoot methods that return a whole list of things, okay? And what I want to do is loop through all of them. So the first index is always index 0. The last index is 1 less than size. So I'll say characters dot size I++. So that is going to start at I equals 0, and then I will continue as long as it's less than size. Remember, when I is equal to the size, you're actually out of bounds. And I'll say system.out.println characters.get I. So that will first, when I is 0, it'll get the first element in the list. Characters get 0. Then it'll be characters.get 1, characters.get 2, all the way up to the size of the list. If the size of the list is 20 characters, it'll go all the way up to I is 19, and then it'll stop. So that's it. And again, we don't have a characters list, so it's going to get mad at me. Took a little while, but it did eventually, right? Now, what do I mean by a for each loop? Now, this is kind of dangerous because we really shouldn't be using for each loops when we want to change anything in a list, so you got to be really careful. But if all you want to do is view a list, you can use a for each loop. Here's how a for each loop works. I don't know if you've seen one before. So each character is an actor. So I put the type as actor. And I'll just say character. And then you put a colon, and then you put the name of the list. So I have to make a new variable of type what it is in the list. Then I can say system.out.println. I can print the character, and maybe they have like a nice toString or something that describes it. That's how it works. So for each loop, you put in the type of what it is that's in the list. If you have a list of strings, you would put string and then a variable name to hold each one, colon, and then the name of your list. And it will print them all out one at a time. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I still want to practice some arrays with you later, but this is going to help you out in your Greenfoot and your program. So I hope that's made sense.